TW Wrestling Talk here with another edition of TW Wrestling Talk. This edition, I'll tell you right off the bat, it's a little different. Kind of a little bit more back to the roots of when I first began these TW Wrestling Talk videos. I'm not going to completely go in like a review form of this past week's Raw or and SmackDown before it. Kind of just picked out a few big deal, at least what I think are some big deal things going on right now to talk about. Things that happened this past week on Raw, of course, and what's going on in SmackDown too, and just WWE in general. So first of all, last week, this past week's SmackDown, we learned that Booker T has been named the new general manager of SmackDown by Vince McMahon. What I think of this is, I think this is pretty good. Booker T was a little unexpected, at least to me. I thought maybe they were gonna, kind of revive, Teddy Long's role. But I think Booker T being named GM is a nice surprise, and I think it's a good way to use Booker T. He's all right on commentary too, but a new face on SmackDown, and Booker T, being a pretty cool kind of guy he is nowadays. I think he fits. I think he brings some more fun to SmackDown, and of course he got Teddy Long as like his assistant, so that's it's kind of, it keeps Teddy Long, gives him some use again as well, maybe some more consistent use, and it should make SmackDown pretty interesting, I think, and I'd like to see where this goes with Booker T as general manager. As far as, on the other hand, as far as AJ is concerned, seeing she's still kind of a new general manager too. She's only been, on the job for a couple weeks. Although I like Booker T as general manager for SmackDown, AJ, some might disagree with me, but I think I'm hoping that she's just a temporary general manager on Raw here. One of the reasons being, well, I think she's she's a little cheesy for a general manager. For the person who announces matches and whatnot. I don't know. She comes off as a little cheesy as general manager, and I'm not totally sure that she's totally fitting that role. At least in my mind. When she was announced general manager, I figured, that was a good thing to do, but her being in general manager, I don't know. I feel like I don't know what I want to call it, the heat of, whenever she'd come out, something big was going to happen. I don't, now it's just, she kind of comes out and announces matches and whatnot. They could put it up on the screen and, have Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole say, oh, this is the main event, and, it would be equally as effective to me. Part of it is, they didn't, I guess with the whole AJ and Daniel Bryan, CM Punk thing kind of coming to an end, I didn't expect it to come to an end when it, as quickly as it did, but, I guess with that, they figured that, they don't really know what else to do with AJ at the moment. They still kind of have her playing around with Daniel Bryan's mind, and, maybe even CM Punk's a little bit too now, but other than that, I don't think the general manager, role is totally fitting AJ right now. That's just my thoughts. Also, I want to mention that both shows now, with Booker T, running SmackDown, and AJ kind of, general managing Raw. Both, there's two face general managers, and something. It's not required, but to me, something that is off that I often like is when they have a heel general manager, running one show, and particularly heel general manager running Raw, with the face general manager running SmackDown. Good example of this is back when Teddy Long, was kind of as usual, ran SmackDown. Never didn't do totally anything major, at least as far as being storyline wise, but as far as like when Vince McMahon was running Raw, and he had that heel personality, and he had a heel authority running Raw like that. It sometimes made for some interesting storylines, and unique. It made both general managers stand out more, I think, in their own ways. And, with both general managers kind of being, face, it doesn't stand out to me as much, as particularly, I like John Laurinaitis because he gave me the same kind of vibe as a general manager that Vince McMahon would get, when he comes out and, granted, their voices are different in their own ways, but, Laurinaitis, I like when, I'm hoping they bring him back eventually. And if you think about it, there's some unique ways, if you think about it, that they could bring him back, with Big Show, kind of, sign an ironclad contract. You wonder if maybe he'll help come back. You wonder if maybe CM Punk will kind of do a 180 on Laurinaitis and bring him, to me there's all kinds of stuff they could do to bring Laurinaitis back, which eventually I do think he'll be back in some form. I'm hoping general manager, just because that heel general manager vibe that Laurinaitis gives, to me is good. And if they made him less of a joke, if they didn't make him a punchline all the time, he could be, like the second coming of Vince McMahon. You could have like another kind of faction, have a really good story with him, and kind of like DX did with Vince McMahon back in 2006. There could be other people involved, but all in all, as far as the general manager scenarios go, I like Booker T. That's interesting. He could make SmackDown a little more fun than it has been. Certainly, we haven't really had a consistent general manager the past few months, so it's good to have a consistent general manager. And I think Booker T, at his stage in the game, is a more fitting general manager for SmackDown than AJ is for Raw. Let's not forget, AJ's only 25. She's only been around for, a little over half a year or so. I don't totally feel like it's working for AJ for the meantime, but we'll see where that goes. We'll see how Booker T does in the coming weeks, and I guess we'll just see if things for AJ kind of improve as general manager. Secondly, I want to mention how Ryback, he's kind of in this storyline with Jinder Mahal and all, but for the first time we saw a couple, we saw him kind of speak as he was entering. I guess they kind of had a they showed him entering, I guess, and they showed him, you know, a short little speaking segment. But this was both on SmackDown and both on Raw. Yeah, this is a first. Him explaining, you know, his "Feed Me More" chants and whatnot. You know, people try, you know, asking my thoughts on that, and I mean, it was, you know, he may have some potential on the mic. I mean, you gotta understand, he's in this gimmick of, you know, this whole "Feed Me More" gimmick and all. I guess it, you know, it's part of his gimmick. It's a little strange, but you know, I mean, we'll see. I'm hoping in the future that, you know, he will be more refined. You know, at least his gimmick kind of evolves a little bit out of that. In order for him to, you know, be a legitimate world champion, you know, he's gonna need more depth to, you know, speaking, at least content wise, and, you know, if he's gonna be, you know, a major player here in WWE. But I mean, for the meantime, this, you know, the little speaking they had him do on the side, you know, it was good. Finally, they had him say at least something, and, you know, I guess it was kind of analogy based and all, but, you know, it was at least interesting that they got him to start speaking at least something. You got to hear him speak rather than, you know, start his chants, you know, some kind of speaking other than, you know, in his normal speaking voice, than him, you know, just chanting "Feed Me More" or, you know, "Finish It," whatever. Different stuff. With this whole Jinder Mahal thing, you know, and this seems like they're trying to pick up the pace with him a little bit, and we'll see how they continue to use him. We'll see continues to, you know, have this feud with Jinder Mahal, see if it goes anywhere else as far as advancing Ryback as the wrestler. We also had some, you know, big star matches, I guess if you want to call them, involving all three competitors for the WWE Championship match at SummerSlam. What I thought out of these three matches, well, you had CM Punk against Rey Mysterio, which was Rey Mysterio was voted to face CM Punk by the WWE Universe. Vote announced by AJ. We also had Big Show facing Randy Orton, and we had, in the main event, of course, John Cena facing Daniel Bryan. Something I noticed, all three of these matches, the opponents, it seems like all three of these matches could be potentially good feuds down the road. I mean, it's obvious that Daniel Bryan and Cena will eventually feud. Given that Daniel Bryan could eventually use some rub from John Cena, but Big Show and Orton, perhaps, even though Orton's more of a SmackDown guy and Big Show's more of a Raw guy as of late. Their their approaches to the ring, they're both kind of more heelish characters. At least Randy Orton is often, is widely considered to be more of a heel character, better as a heel. But given his Apex Predator gimmick and whatnot, I think that could mesh with a pretty good feud with the Big Show maybe at some point in the near future, down the road. And of course, to mention Daniel Bryan and Cena, chant heavy, feud there, down the road. And CM Punk and Rey Mysterio, interesting as well. That was, it was a pretty technically sound match between those two. They're pretty quick, technical guys. And given that it was Raw, they couldn't have this, pay-per-view worthy match. But for for just a Raw non-main event match was pretty good. And it certainly showed some promise. If those two were to have a feud, they could have pretty darn good match. And they couldn't, Punk's heel basically in Mysterio's face. So that's a possibility. With the state right now of Orton being the face and Big Show heel, possible. And obviously Daniel Bryan and Cena, something I'm sure we'll see, perhaps in the next year. Big Show and Orton result in a double count out. I know it was getting a lot of boos, but I was actually kind of happy about that. I wouldn't, out of those guys, I did not want one to really win over the other. Just, for the sake of their momentum, for the sake of Big Show looking strong, and for the sake of Orton's, return, him not losing momentum just like that. I thought a double count out there was a good idea for that. And obviously Punk, even though Mysterio kind of just returned, he's not really in any major feud right now. He's kind of jobbing a little bit like Orton has since returning. So, CM Punk winning that was, make the champion continue, look strong. Good idea there. And then of course Cena and Daniel Bryan. I was pretty sure that Cena was going to win. Daniel Bryan's not going to win his first match against John Cena. Let's face it, that's just the way it goes. But it wasn't a bad match. For it being John Cena, it wasn't, he wasn't totally limited. He didn't totally look, one-dimensional as usual. He got his usual, chain of signature moves, leading up to an AA attempt. But other than that, that wasn't a bad match. Probably not the best, but best in the card of the night. But the way it ended with CM Punk coming out and Big Show, I like the way it ended. When it was all said and done, CM Punk, got on, he knocked everyone else out at the end of the match. Got on the commentary, I guess, whatever you're gonna call him, the commentary headset, and started talking to Jerry and Cole how this is how, and WWE Universe watching at home, and how this is how Raw should end, the champion and all, standing tall. And he got back in the ring, and Big Show actually knocked CM Punk out, and then as Cena was getting out, Big Show knocked Cena out. I thought this was a great move because it was unexpected, and it kind of reasserted, it made it so that, as if Big Show could say, hey, don't forget about me. I'm in this match. I'm in this match too. Even though chances are Big Show is least likely to walk out of SummerSlam as WWE Champion, is at least, they made his presence, they kind of reasserted that, Big Show's a threat here too. He's not a pushover. If Big Show won, that'd be pretty cool, I think, at SummerSlam. Unexpected, which would be cool, but I don't think he will. But at least the way Raw ended. You know, you thought CM Punk, he's saying how, this is how Raw's supposed to end, the champion standing tall. You figured that's what was going to happen, but not if the Big Show could stop it. And Big Show looked strong at the end of the show, and that's a good thing. It's unexpected, and it was a night that kind of made all three guys look strong. CM Punk won his match, and Cena won his match. Big Show had a double count out, but at the end of the night, he was the last guy standing. So, it's good. It makes all three guys look good. But at the end of the night, Big Show was the guy standing. So, made for something interesting. And maybe next week they'll start. If they open a promo with one of those guys, maybe they could start with a Big Show. Kind of continue a trend maybe of being, doing things in a different, having people talk in a different order or whatever, having new things to say. Big Show, came out and said, how he's the last man. He was the guy standing at the end of the night. It just makes things more interesting to me. And then if they have AJ come out first again, and or CM Punk come out again, or Cena, and maybe give Big Show a turn again to be the first guy to come out and talk, talk a lot of talk. That if that makes enough sense. So we'll see where that goes. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the whole Triple H and Lesnar story. Well, they announced how both of them, Triple H and Brock Lesnar were in the building. They were in the building. They were going to be there, and also how Shawn Michaels was there live. Was going to be there live too. They just so happened to kind of condense, all three appearances into the one promo. Which began with Shawn Michaels talking about, the upcoming match, and then this time Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar came out at the same time to cut him short, and talked about how, Shawn Michaels, it's like he's predicting, obviously in Triple H's favor, and how he's going to be in his corner at SummerSlam. And I remember Michael Cole saying at one point during this whole thing, I think it's Triple H was coming out, how Lesnar made it personal. Lesnar attacked Triple H's family. And this is a part of the story here where I heavily criticize what they're doing, because Brock Lesnar was not the one who. Well, number one, Brock Lesnar didn't say anything at all last week. What was said was by Paul Heyman. Just because Paul Heyman says a lot, just because Brock Lesnar is his client doesn't mean that's what Brock Lesnar said. Paul Heyman said, what did he say? He said, is that what you teach your children or something to? Triple H, he accused Triple H last week of name calling, and he was doing the name calling, and all he said was, is that what you teach your children? I believe I covered this last week on TWWT Wrestling Talk, and that's, how is that attacking family? I don't know. I've heard that expression all the time, being said to other people, but that doesn't mean they're attacking their family. But somehow that's what WWE is trying to make it out to be. And it really it only seemed to get worse when Stephanie McMahon came out last week. But as far as this week goes, you know, they're asserting that, you know, that Brock Lesnar, who didn't say anything last week, attacked Triple H's family, and this is just making things get, you know, sillier, because number one, Paul Heyman was the only, between Lesnar and Heyman last week, he was the only one who spoke, and he didn't really attack his family in any way, really. But they're insisting that he attacked his family, and this, at least story-wise, I feel like this is going down the tubes. At least story-wise. The match, I'm looking forward to the match, but if they would not have ignored all these lawsuit, you know, the whole lawsuit thing, which is why the story began, you know, back in May in the first place, I'd be looking even more forward to the match, because the stakes would be higher. Now, for some reason, this match, it's like, you know, it's like it came about because Triple H's family was attacked, which it really wasn't, and the man who he's facing didn't even say anything about his family at all. Didn't even say anything about him to when supposedly his family was attacked. No, this story began 3 months ago because there were lawsuits being filed against Triple H. Well, first Lesnar's, and then you know, one from Paul Heyman for, you know, Triple H putting his hands on him. As far as I'm concerned, Lesnar not, you know, getting what he asked for and whatnot, and, you know, that was what began the storyline in the first place. Not, you know, they didn't, last week, they didn't just, you know, Paul Heyman and Triple H didn't have this random rendezvous in the ring, and, you know, with Heyman supposedly saying, you know, saying something so bad about his family, and then Lesnar just pops up, and suddenly he's the guy who attacked his family. Inconsistent, and you know, it's a shame to me. What seems to be going on. I mean, I've been waiting for weeks now, you know, for like something more serious, something that was going to really raise the stakes, you know, for this match. Something that would, you know, put the company, like, you know, in jeopardy. You know, something like that. You know, where Paul Heyman and Lesnar could take over. Something was kind of said a while ago. There was never really any light shed on lawsuits since. So that leaves me scratching my head, and I don't like that. Looking forward to the match, you know, from the match, and seeing where it goes from there, seeing how Brock Lesnar looks coming out of that. So I mean, but as far as what they're doing lately, I'm not totally on board with. The whole, in general, it's the whole, just the whole Brock Lesnar attacked Triple H's family when, one, he didn't say anything to his family, and two, Paul Heyman didn't really attack his family. I already explained that. But one thing I am curious about, though, is what I liked was when Brock Lesnar just, you know, took the microphone from Paul Heyman, you know, from Paul Heyman's hands, and, you know, he said how he's going to he'll see Triple H at SummerSlam, and he'll see Shawn Michaels before SummerSlam. You know, you wonder what he means by that. You wonder if, you know, if Shawn Michaels is even supposed to be at Raw next week. What if they have Lesnar, like, you know, show up at his house or something, you know, such as like Triple H, you know, like Triple H did back several years ago and attacked Orton at his house. Or, you know, what if something like that something like that happens? They like make something happen in public where Lesnar like attacks Shawn Michaels or something. I'm interested in seeing what that, what happens there, because it seems like something's going to happen there. Like Lesnar's going to attack Shawn Michaels or something, and at least up the ante in that respect. Take Triple H off more. But what it all boils down to is this was supposed to be about lawsuits, and that's the main reason that that Lesnar got ticked off at Triple H in the first place. That's the main reason that Heyman got involved in this in the first place. Because lawsuits and whatnot came about. Now it's spiraled somewhere else that really it should not have ever spiraled to. But for some reason, that's whether things are blown out of proportion or whatever. That's what WWE's doing. And they have one more week, one more episode of Raw to make this, to build this up, and hoping they do up the stakes higher. Then hopefully they do better than, oh, Triple H's family was attacked. He's mad, he's very mad. He's gonna, I think he's gonna win, because, kind of quoting Shawn Michaels here, but whatever. I just hope they do something. I mean, they have one Raw to, make the stakes higher here, or, kind of fix what they've kind of been breaking storyline-wise with this. I mean, anytime Lesnar is on TV, I'm watching. I'm hooked. And my eyes aren't leaving the TV. But they can't manage to screw this up. But it's inconsistent storytelling, and sometimes that kind of tarnishes things that are supposed to be really good. So we'll just wait and see, I guess, what they do with this whole story. And we'll see what how they carry it into SummerSlam. But it seems like a lot's going to have to take place between these two, and I guess maybe Shawn Michaels and Paul Heyman on the side. It seems like there's a lot that's going to have to take place on the next Raw. A lot that's going to have to happen for this whole match to make sense, for it to just be more than his family was attacked, they're going to have a fight, they're going to have a match in the ring. Let's not forget the past 3 months leading up to this, what that was all about. So we'll see. Alright, thanks for watching, and please stay tuned. I appreciate the kind of recent boost of support I've been getting. You guys know who you are. Thanks for viewing, and just continue to stay tuned for future TWS and Talk episodes. And I appreciate any help getting any exposure with these with this channel, with these videos. Any help getting more subscribers and viewers. Alright, thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.